What is up, winning team? Today I want to talk about Baby Reindeer. Baby Reindeer, because I have so many thoughts about this show that I've just been letting it stew in my mind. I'm like, I don't know how to start because I have a lot of thoughts about society's attitude to dealing with this, which again, no surprise if you're used to being around here that I am severely disappointed with how society is handling the situation. But also, it's an opportunity for me to talk about demons and why I truly believe demons exist. Okay, so buckle up. Who knows how this is going to go? If you've been here before, you know the show. Let's get into it. So, if you didn't know, and I'm going to spoil it because I don't recommend you watch it, it's quite traumatizing, right? Especially because it's based on a true story. And the man who is in question in the story, is actually playing himself, which I have a lot to say about that. And I have a lot to say about his stalker and his relationship with his stalker and how revealing it is about us as a society. So, in the show, this guy is a young comedian who wants to do comedy and become an actor, and he does a show in none other than the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland, which is one of my favourite places. I love Scotland. I can't be honest, I'm not surprised because Edinburgh for me, can I just say that my life is crazy? Yeah, so when I went to Edinburgh end of last year, I was like, I love this place. Like, Edinburgh's up there with my favourite cities in the world, like favourite places in the world. And what I like about it is it's dark. It's like, it's got that feel of just like darkness, which I kind of love being around that because it encourages the light within me. I don't know how to explain that. So just crazy that I was just there and I was just thinking about the nature of the space. And what's even crazier, okay, about this. So, Seven Deadly Sins. I knew I was going to bring up Seven Deadly Sins. I always thought it was really interesting that, and this all has to do with some certain things, by the way, with spiritual things. There's a reason why I'm mentioning these like consistencies of places and how I feel like it means to do with certain things. So I was watching Seven Deadly Sins this January because I was like, I need something to just lose my mind in. Very interesting. What I thought was interesting is that the 10 highest level demons who broke back into the world who broke out of the like seal that they had, they broke back into the world. Interestingly, Seven Deadly Sins is set in Britannia, and these 10 commandments, as they were called, by the way, which they are my favorite part of the show, the 10 commandments, they're all demons, but it's such interesting show. Anyway, they appear in Edinburgh. So, so when this Baby Reindeer thing came up and this Fringe Festival malarkey, I was like, okay, this is so interesting, isn't it? So he wants to do comedy and he ends up meeting this guy. You know what? This happens all the time in the entertainment industry. It's the same everywhere, right? He finds a person, they say that they've got connections, they're going to help him, is helping him on his work, but there's obviously a sick, twisted individual who is drugging him. This is the first time I've heard of GHB. Apparently this is a popular date rape drug, which I am going to look more into these drugs like on a chemistry level because it's piquing my interest. So he so he gets involved with this guy who's drugging him and then like just doing weird stuff. So he's waking up with like a wet crotch. He's waking up like having flashbacks to, all this stuff. It's very traumatizing and I don't know how he played himself. And I want to just start off by saying that one thing I know about men and women is we handle trauma very differently. A lot of male trauma can convert into anger and can also convert into what's the other one? Into just like really weird behaviors, like the guy that was doing the stuff that to him in the first place. This is why I believe, like, when you look at the entertainment industry, whereas you might have like a lot of the women when they come out from it, deal with it in one way. A lot of the guys, some of them end up becoming offenders. This all has to do with demons, my belief as to why this stuff happens and why this happens in this way. And we're going to come back to that, okay? So yeah, he's now going through this cycle, and now he keeps going back to this guy, knowing what's happening because of what he wants to do for his career. Literally the story of so many people in the entertainment industry. I'm sure that's probably what Cassie was also feeling like. Isn't it interesting, the timing of everything? And now we can finally talk about Diddy. Some of us have been talking about him for freaking years. And now everyone's finally like, oh my gosh, this is whatever, the tapes of Diddy. I'm like, yeah, you freaking idiots. Can't stand the stupid planet. My gosh, I can't, or the world, not the planet. The planet's beautiful that God created the world. I understand why the Bible says that you cannot love God and love the world. I get it now. You either love God and hate the world, or you hate God and love the world. And I truly hate the world. So glad that I've reached that level in my walk with the Lord. So then he gets into this relationship. Now he's living with his ex-girlfriend's mum. His life is quite complicated, okay? But he ends up in a relationship with a woman that is trans. But he's not able to, they're not able to have sexual intimacy and stuff. But he has a stalker, a woman who used to come to his pub, who he claims everything in the story is true. And this is important. This is going to be so interesting, these videos, I can tell. And so he then has this stalker, right? And it's so funny to me that the focal point for society is the stalker. I'm like, so we're not going to talk about, it's just, society is just weird. Like, the focal point is the stalker. And for me, that's not the focal point. In fact, it's just another piece of a bigger puzzle of something that is glaringly obvious that, as always, society is missing, or I believe is being willfully ignorant about, which I'm going to explain in these videos. So he has a stalker. So he says, you'll see why I say that later on. This stalker, according to the story, she comes into his pub and he gives her a free cup of tea, and she jokes around with him, calls him baby reindeer, which when we find out why she calls him that is again another layer that I feel like, why are people not paying attention to this? Especially if, as he's saying it is a true story. So she comes in and she comes to his pub. She doesn't drink. She always orders a Coke. This is in the show. And apparently she sends him hundreds and thousands of emails. So in real life, he's claiming that that Netflix has got 4,100 emails from her, and she's emailing him all day, just lots of different things, about that she loves him. And the funny thing is, she says in the show, again, another thing that goes, as society's not paying attention to, because we're all so busy sitting on, doing what we always do, wasting time. She always says to him in the show, which I found fascinating, she's like, somebody hurt you, didn't they? And she says it all the time in the show, right? Yeah, I would love to actually interview this man in person, because one of the reasons I like to meet people in person is because I'm a very spiritual person myself, so I can really feel people's spirits. That's why that's why last year when I was traveling, I have to just go to places and I just have to just embrace the energy of the place, because I can feel the energy of the place, and then I do that with people as well. That's why I don't really care what people have to say, because you could be saying everything and looking perfect and have the ugliest spirit, right? Anyway, I would love to actually meet this man in person. Yeah, so she's apparently stalking him. She keeps coming to the pub. She's acting as if she doesn't do all of this behind the scenes, right? But she is, and she's sending him all this stuff. And then there's this whole thing about him. Yeah, he's kind of giving it back to her though, because here's my analysis of the situation. I think that he was enjoying that somebody actually appreciated his artwork, because he was having a hard time at the Fringe Festival. People didn't really get his humor, but she thought he was funny. She promoted his stuff. So I think there was a weird dynamic that was built between the two of them, where she was a stalker, and she was also showing him a kind of love and admiration that he needed. but also that he wasn't ready for in a weird kind of way, right? Because he was dealing with a lot and he was taking himself back into this traumatic situation at the same time, and then also trying to have this relationship, which again, I think it's very interesting that he specifically was in a relationship with a trans woman, because I don't think I'm ready to get to that point yet. So yeah. So anyways, how does the show even end in the end? So in the end, he like, and it's very weird how the show is, because as time goes on, he seems to be more and more worried about her. She's popping up places where he is. She's obsessively showing up, this, that, and the other, right? But then he also went to her house. He also, at some point in the show, right, just shows up and goes and has sex with her, right? Just shows up at her door. This is when he's not able to have sex with the trans woman that he's with, okay? So so that's one of the reasons why I feel like society's attitude to this situation, and everyone being like, oh my gosh, the woman in real life, because now everybody's found the real woman in real life, and she's been on Piers Morgan. I was listening to it a few days ago, because I like to hear, anytime there's a story, I guess it's from my own experience of having had so many times people assume things about me, having never heard my version of events and running off as if it's gospel truth. It's also why me and the Lord are very close, because that's literally the story of his life with the world, obviously making all these assumptions based on what other people said, not on actually people going to him directly, like what I do. So whenever I have a chance to hear what somebody says for themselves, it's the same reason I'm reading Hitler's book. People, like, you know what I'm saying? I want to know what this person said for themselves also. So I'm listening to the interview with the lady, and I'm not coming in with any type of assumptions, because I believe when you're listening to people, I'm so too mature for this planet, actually. When you're listening to, having a conversation with people, you have to listen without any assumptions there, and you just have to let them speak, and let the things come out, and like not be sitting on the fence. Because I feel like a lot of people immediately have swayed to his side in this stalking. Because remember, the focus wasn't even about the guy that the guy that did the crimes isn't even getting as much like attention from the media and from society as the flipping stalker woman, who at least was admiring him, who he had sex with and showed up at her house, who he continued to engage with, who he told he was going to hang her curtains. Can I just say this, right, as a woman as well? This is why, one of the reasons why I just think talking with men as a whole is something I don't prefer to do. Because, I don't know, sometimes men say stuff, like men just say stuff. That's one thing I learned early. I was thinking, actually, I'll tell you guys, because I was thinking about this in school, yeah, about how men just say stuff, right? Because when I was at school, I always laugh at the things like the boys used to say to me, like on BBM and like MSN and like all of that, because they would say the craziest stuff to me, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously play it cool in school, which I actually enjoyed that quite a lot, because I would be standing there looking at these guys thinking, I know. Like, it just was funny. Like, it was just funny to me, because I was just standing there, like, the whole group of guys, like, and it's just funny. But I realized that guys, they just say stuff. Like, they just say stuff sometimes, especially when, you know, I don't know, they just can say stuff sometimes. So, you know, as a woman, you gotta be wise that men just say stuff sometimes. You can't always just be like, oh my gosh, she said this, so like, yeah, it's true. No, it doesn't mean it's true at all, you know. Oh gosh. And so you know, he was kind of stringing her along, and that's the thing that I think is really unhelpful that some men do, is like saying you're not interested in a woman, or you're not interested in somebody, but then like your actions showing the opposite is actually confusing. Now, I am somebody who takes full accountability for myself, and I don't like to blame nobody else. So you know what I do instead? I just don't talk to you lot, because you can't be trusted. Because if I now believe what you said and I now act on it, look, I'm going to be treated like this stalker, because she's thinking, well, he's saying this, but he's acting like that. You know what I'm saying? So what is there to be trusted in this world? We can't trust people's actions. We can't trust people's words. what a horrific society this is, right? And so, anyways, the show comes to an end. He eventually does, reasonably well, decent. The story then gets picked up, and it's really weird because what happens in the show is then what then happens in an amplified version afterwards, because then somebody hears, oh yeah, he has a breakdown on stage, and he tells, so in the middle of his like final comedy competition show, he breaks down on stage and tells the story of everything that happened. Somebody films it, goes viral. He then becomes famous. He then starts to have a following, and this is now how he's ended up with this Netflix deal. It's just insane. Like, this is exactly the insanity I would expect the whole thing to come from a place with an energy, like the energy space of Edinburgh, but I love it there. I love being in places like that. I love the darkness. I love I love it all. Right, so I don't love the darkness, like I want to be in the darkness, but I like when I'm in the darkness, because the darkest places are always the greatest opportunities for the light to be shown in the greatest way possible. And that's why I like to be in places where there is darkness, because I'm with the infinite power that is Jesus, and it's like, God, this is your opportunity to go off. And that's kind of how I feel about like why the Lord has allowed things to work in the way that they have in this world. It's kind of like the more that he allows us to run ourselves into our own destruction, the further down the drain that we find ourselves, the darker that the room we create is. When he turns his light on, people are going to see the glory of God, right? People are really going to see the glory of God. So so the aftermath now is that people are saying like, oh, that this lady, her name's, I don't know, what's her name in the show? I can't remember. Oh yeah, and it turns out that the reason why the lady, the stalker, which I'm saying stalker because, bro, I don't know. I listen, as somebody who has actually had people, you guys know about my local creep who is now leaving me alone, thank God, but still stares at me like a freaking creep every time I see him. You know about my previous local creep, in my old flat. The one that would never leave me alone. There's not one single ounce of me that ever could have wanted to have sex with them. Especially because as soon as that happens, that is like the greenest flag you're giving, the greenest light you're giving this person. So the fact that society is swaying to his side and saying that she's the stalker, and she's a lawyer in real life, and she has a boyfriend who's also a lawyer, and she's been in a relationship for 6 years. So her and who she is isn't really looking like she's as crazy as he's making her out to be. But he's pitched this as this is a true story. And this is how it happened. Certain little details obviously would change, like her name. He was like, oh, I tried to make it so they couldn't find her, but the actress looks just like her. Right, there's too many things that make it obvious who she was, because even Piers Morgan said it. He said, well, they didn't do a good job of hiding you, because I could have found you in 10 minutes after watching that. That's why people found her so quickly, right? So, and here's the other thing about the modern society that I find interesting now is how people now going through things have an opportunity for the people to speak. It's like public has truly become like the jury. the people have really become the jury. That's why people get cancelled, because the people are really taking up this position as the jury. Unfortunately, the jury is very broken, bitter, selfish, entitled, willfully ignorant. I'm thinking of the other words I would use to describe modern society. Foolish. So the way that people really be talking online so much, sometimes I'm just like, wow. So revealing, So, it's like when people say like, oh, so-and-sos are like this. Okay, it could be something like, someone will be like, no, older sisters are never to be trusted. And then somebody else will say, yeah, well, my older sister was lovely. And they're like, no, but you don't understand that my older sister did this to me. And it's like, bro, I'm so sorry that's actually happened to you. Like, let's talk about it, and let's work through this and work through the pain, because you're sounding wounded, my friend. You're sounding wounded, and you need help, and you need Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So it's very revealing how people conduct themselves. And yeah, so people have swayed onto her side of the thing, his side of the thing. But then there's just some interesting little things in there, you know. Because yes, the baby reindeer. The baby reindeer is called baby reindeer because she had apparently had a reindeer that looked a baby reindeer toy that looked like him, and it was the baby reindeer toy that, according to the show, she used to hold um, to she used to hold when she was going through her own household trauma of her own childhood trauma. And obviously all of this is just trauma left, right and center. When the guy Richard, I remember his name now, Richard Gadd, when he opens up to his parents, turns out his dad went through a similar thing. So it's just trauma everywhere. It's just trauma, and it's just, this world is just broken people just passing on these demons to each other over and over again. This is why I know that promiscuity is the favorite thing of the devil, because it's like all of this, like we're going to come to it. So in real life, I think her name's Martha. I can't remember if she's Martha in the show or Martha in real life. That's crazy. But yeah, so there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of things that are looking a bit sus about how he's told the story, right? Because one of the things is in the show, she admits to guilt, and I think she does. Does she go to prison, or I don't know? But in real life, there actually is no. She's claiming there's no evidence that that actually happened, and she's actually planning to sue everyone under the sun because she's actually a lawyer, like she was in the show. She had a law degree, but then she didn't look like somebody with a law degree because her house was really a mess. She seemed to always have time to be emailing this guy. Things weren't really adding up, and I think that so much of this is like a perfect, like a display of the society that we live in and how easy it is for us. Like, you know, like do you know what I love to do? I love, and then I know that people don't, I know that people are going to be like, that's so unsafe, but everywhere is unsafe. Broad daylight is unsafe, okay? Broad daylight, just outside where I live in broad daylight, right? There were guys that my brother discovered, shout out to my brother for being one of the men who actually does things, right? He discovered that there's these guys that have been taking teenage girls in the middle of broad day into the forests, like near where, around in this town, because like I said, there's a lot of forests in this town. I've said that before. They've got tents and stuff in there. They're bringing girls in broad daylight, and they're like coming home from school and stuff. Like just the other day, somebody went to, and my brother was actually telling me that he's hounding the police. My brother, 23-year-old black guy, has to hound the police about this stuff. That's how crazy society is, right? And the other day, somebody else, another person, went to prison, broad daylight, 4 p.m. Girl was, assaulted, whatever. So listen, this Richard Gadd person, he's getting, sexually assaulted in broad day. He's met a guy in a bar that runs or whatever. Like, so I'm just sick of this world acting like, oh, the broad day and people of certain positions are supposed to be trusted and safe. I just want to get that out before I say what I'm about to say next, because people are going to be like, oh, that's not safe for you to do. It's not safe for me to walk out the door. It's not safe for me to grow up in my own childhood home. So it's not safe for people in church. So these days, a lot of the time, it's not safe. It's just not safe in this planet. The planet isn't safe. So I like to go out when I'm in cities and stuff. I like to go out at night. I like to go out at night when it's like 3. And can I tell you what I find fascinating? Of all the traumas I've endured, none of them ever occurred out at night, in the dark, in the ways that people always talk about in society are the dangerous places. It was all the safe places. When I go out late at night, I actually have really great conversations with crackheads and so many people, and I learn a lot. I learned that we as a society, and this is where I was going with this, it's like the difference between a city in the day and the city in the night, right? In the daytime, when you walk through a city, places like London, places like Edinburgh, places like New York, right? You walk through and there's tourism, there's people are drinking their coffees, they're eating their sandwiches, taking photos of their family, out with their friends, on a school trip, going to work, reading a book, listening to music. I love to just observe people. So that's why I like to be by myself a lot, because I just sit in places and I just observe humans. like a scientist, right? And it's all so funny because to me it's like the Instagram like effect of all the shiny nice things, but it's like at the same time, if we look at the night for me is more representative of what's going on the inside of humanity and society, because in the night you see struggle, you see people that are fighting with their demons, you see the real nature of people. It's like this whole thing that people say about so and so was an alcoholic, an angry drunk, or whatever, and it's the alcohol. I find it interesting that we blame the alcohol, we blame the substance. I find that fascinating because to me, I just think it's revealing of what's already on the inside. And you know what the devil is absolutely so good at doing? He is good at creating an issue, just like a snake, biting you, infecting you, and disappearing so that you're starting to find, what do I blame? And you end up blaming something else. Right? You end up blaming something else. And that's the trick of the enemy. That's the trick of the devil. It is absolutely incredible work from him. I hate to admit it. He is doing very well at what he is doing. And that's why I find it fascinating that people don't want to listen to people like myself who talk about things like demons. Because I'm like, so what are we going to do as a solution? What are we going to do as a solution? Because right now with all of this stuff, it's like everybody's just infecting everybody and everybody's continuing everything, and it's all just messy. If we want to catch predators these days, like I was thinking about this with my brother, my poor brother, bless his soul, who more than once has been the one standing up for, women who have been, sexually assaulted, right? Why does it always have to be at the point of after the offense that justice can be made? And then that justice takes forever. Like when I was talking to this police detective, right, at length about just everything to do with, working on these types of cases, and he was explaining to me how a case that he just closed, just went to prison. The person who was, the girls who were affected, who had been assaulted, this happened back in 2019. So as a victim, this is why I will never go to the police. Never. Because you know why? You're going to have to revisit this thing over and over again, prove with evidence. Who, after being assaulted, thinks, oh, I'm going to go straight to get a rape kit while you're experiencing the trauma of what just happened? This world makes me sick to my stomach. Sick. And then we just continue in the mess. We just continue in the mess, and there's never a way to pinpoint the root cause that's going to uproot all of this ridiculous stuff out from the ground and get rid of it. You know what I'm saying? Get rid of it. You know what's funny? I'm thinking of, what you call them, spring onions or scallions, depending where you are in the world, right? And I bought some the other day and I thought, I'm not buying these again, right? Because why am I buying them when I can literally throw them in like a pot with water and they will regrow? So that's what I'm doing now, right? I'm like, why am I buying these? Because I just, this is this dumbness of this world we live in. God made the world to just rejuvenate itself, and we're just out here complaining about affording money in the world where God made food free, but we allowed people to take our freedoms away from us. But nevertheless, so the reason I'm bringing this up is even me cutting the spring onion down, if I leave enough of the white and the root, all I have to put it in is water and it will grow back. And this is what we do in society. We cut things down, we never get to the root, and therefore we cannot uproot it, therefore it grows back. And I'm going to explain in the next video, I'm going to explain how, and use this baby reindeer as an example of how these demons and how this thing, I believe, is continued and why the situation keeps getting worse. Because for me, I feel like these two were just two people, broken people coming together that found a way that was kind of beneficial for them both, but also kind of toxic, like a twin flame. Like a twin flame. I might use that as the title of this video. A twin flame. This is what I'm saying. The enemy loves to create these partnerships with us as humans, or just these relationships that we are like so just destructively coexisting together. Because the truth is, if you look at the two of them, right, and I'm not judging them because this is all of us. I'm just being real. I'm being a real human. I'm not pretending like everybody else. This is why I prefer the nighttime people. This is why I prefer the crackheads, and I prefer all those people. You know why? Because they're real, and you have real conversations. I don't want to stand there and like stand, oh my gosh, it's the Eiffel Tower and take cute photos and like pretend and then post online as if everything's just so freaking perfect, and like hide away the fact that this existence is crazy. That's why everybody's suffering in silence. That's why everybody's suffering in silence, because we just do this in this world. We want to like hide all the we want to hide this stuff as if it's going to go away. It's just going to grow. It's like with cancer. Why, like literally like cancer. Why do we have to get rid of all of it? You get rid of all of it because when they're getting rid of the cancer, if you don't get rid of all of it, that thing's going to grow back. That's what we do in society. That's why all these poor people like talking about, when, all these situations where people are like, oh, don't tell anyone about this. Oh, we'll just sweep that under the carpet. Oh, this is just a family secret. Or, all of that. The results of what's going to happen like after that are not going to go away. They're going to grow and they're going to present themselves in some way that is going to be destructive for society. And that's why I think this whole story of baby reindeer is very interesting, because again, the way that they're both reacting to it now on the outside, now that it's the real people and it's the real situation, it's getting really interesting, isn't it? Because now there are some truths to show that she did have slightly, this is my opinion, a strange relationship or admiration for him, like that was a bit past what I would say is healthy for a fan of somebody. But then also it's clear that he kind of participated a little bit too much to be walking around talking about like my stalker and this and whatever, because there's some facts that would claim to be facts that weren't true. And I'll tell you what, I actually think both of them are delusional. And I think both of them are believing in a fake reality to protect themselves, because it's actually a protective mechanism we have in our brains, that sometimes we either become numb or we block something out or we believe the opposite of what actually happened or something different. It's actually the heart of narcissism, by the way, as well. Not to say everybody who does that is a narcissist, but I'm saying that's what narcissists do in an extreme sense, create this fake reality, this fake thing that they get everybody to believe in, so that like if everybody believes in it and everybody believes in this fake reality, then they get to believe that that's who they are, when deep down they secretly actually hate themselves. So, and that's why as somebody like myself, I can boldly talk about my own issues and I can tell you whatever, because I'm my real self and I actually do love my actual real self, because the Lord loves me, and the Lord if the Lord loves me, then why don't I love me? You know what I'm saying? If the Lord says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, if the Lord says he knows every single number of hairs on my head and he knew me before I was born, if the Lord says he'll do exceedingly and abundantly above anything I can ask or think, if the Lord says that for God so loved the world that he died himself, he sacrificed his own son for us so that we could have a restored relationship, bro, that's going to get you some real self-love going on. Because you're going to be like, wow, Jesus dying on the cross, really? For me? Wow, that's love, man. So anyways, we'll talk more about all of this because I know I'm not done. I'm far from over with this whole thing. So stay tuned, you guys, for the upcoming videos. I'm going to talk about the demons. I'm going to talk about the demons, and I'm going to talk about how I see this in society and how this is a perfect example, and the delusion. So if life's a game, let's play to win, and I'll see you in the next one.